What's good, y'all? What's going on? My name's Ciara, and this is Self-Made Energy, where we want for nothing because we can manifest anything. Last week, I asked my Instagram followers what they wanted to see me do next, and I gave them the option between the Boss Lady Blazer and the Sugar Daddy Robe. And of course, my bossed out babes is like, sis, Boss Lady Blazer, like, what are you doing? So, here we are. You see her sneak peeking it. Fire. Don't get me started. You know what? Let's just get into the video. Y'all about to see right now. Okay guys, so this is the huge piece of paper that is my pattern. Just gonna go ahead and cut the pattern out, and then we'll go to the next step. The next thing you're gonna want to do is take the fabric of your choice. You're either gonna need two separate kinds of fabric, one for the outside and one for the lining, or you can just use one type of fabric double layered. It's up to you. I already made my whole lining, so you're not going to see that part in the film, but you'll see me making the outside. So you're just going to take the pattern and fold your fabric double layered so you can get two pieces of each piece from the pattern. Also, when you're cutting out the back piece, you're going to want to cut it out on the fold so you can unfold it and it'll be one piece. Unless you want the seam down the middle, then you can cut it separately. It's up to you. I didn't really follow the pattern anyway because the instructions were like in a language that I did not understand. Sewing. It's spoken sewing. Unfortunately, I'm not fluent in that language yet. Also, when you're cutting out the pattern for the pockets, you're going to want to cut out 4 layers instead of 2 because you're going to need 2 layers for each pocket. When you're cutting out your pattern, make sure that you lay your fabric flat and there's no lumps or bumps because that will distort the pattern once you remove the pins. So make sure everything is nice and flat where you're pinning and cutting it out. Alright, so once you're done cutting out your pattern, you're going to want to make sure you make 2 snips in the armhole so you know where to line up your arm piece, and 2 slips on the side of your front and back bodice pieces so you know where to line up your pockets. Once you've done making your markings, you're going to want to take your back bodice piece and take 1 layer of the outer seam pocket and line it up with your 2 slits. You're going to want to do that on both sides of the back bodice piece. And make sure that you line up the pockets because if they're not lined up evenly, when you go to sew the pockets together, they're going to come out super janky. And you're not going to be able to put your hand in because they're not the right size. So make sure everything's lined up right. Once you're done with that, you're going to take 1 layer of your front bodice piece and line up 1 layer of the outer seam pocket. And then you're going to take the other side of your front bodice piece and line up 1 layer of the outer seam pocket. Once you're done lining up all the pockets, you're going to take the back bodice and the front bodice pieces and put them right sides together. So you're going to want the outside facing up. And make sure you line up the pockets before you pin everything together, because again, you do not want these janky looking pockets. So you're just going to pin the shoulder seams together and down the outer seams, but around the pocket. You don't want to sew your pocket closed, so don't pin your pocket closed. Also, keep in mind when you're pinning your front bodice to the back bodice, there's going to be 2 pieces sticking out the top. That's going to be your collar. So you're going to want to pin that collar piece to your back bodice collar piece. I hope that makes sense. And don't forget to make your markings in your sleeves so you can line them up on your bodice when it's time to sew. The first thing I'm going to sew is the shoulder seams and the back collar seams. Once that's done, I'm going to sew down the entire length of the outer seams. And when you get to the pocket, you're going to come a little bit down into the pocket, maybe like 1/3 of a centimeter, and then you're going to go around the outside of the pocket. So you're going to sew the pocket closed on the outside, leaving an opening for your hand on the inside. See video for details. Okay, so once you're done sewing all your seams closed, you're going to want to move on to your sleeves. So you're going to take your sleeve pattern, right sides together, and sew down the length of the entire sleeve. And then you're going to want to do a loose basting stitch around the armhole so you can adjust the size of your sleeve and make it fit into your blazer. In order to fit the sleeve properly, you're going to want to gather the armhole and put the sleeve right side facing out inside the blazer, inside out, and pin around the entire armhole. Make sure when you're pinning you line up all the seams, because you don't want to sew everything together and then you turn it right side out and your seams are not lined up, because it's gonna look crazy. You want it to look nice and professional, so line up all your seams. When you're done sewing on the sleeves, you're going to move on to the collar. Now, the collar calls for facing. I don't know what the definition exactly for facing is, but it's literally just another copy of the pattern. So the fabric is thick and not flimsy. That's basically what facing is for, to make the fabric more stabilized. So you're just going to pin the facing on and pin your pockets in place. And make sure when you're lining up the facing and the pockets, everything is spaced out evenly, because it's all going to come together in the end. Make sure everything is very even when you're pinning it together. Once you pinned everything in place, you're going to want to sew the pockets down. Make sure again everything is even before you sew it, because you don't want to take the time out to have the seam rip. There's a couple times I had the seam rip during this process, but you're not going to see it in the video because this video is long enough. But once you're done with the pockets, you're going to move on to sewing the facing to the front bodice outsides. Now, this is not the side with the pocket. This is going to be the inside seam that has the buttons. You're going to sew it wrong sides together to the right side of the front bodice. Once you're done sewing the collar and the facing, you're going to flip it inside out, or right side out actually, and you're going to want to pin down the collar and facing to the inside seams of the back collar. I hope I'm explaining this right. I hope the video makes it more clear, because it's hard to explain in words. And now you see my lining piece. I'm also going to pin my lining just on the back collar and on the front of the collar. Once you're done pinning the collar in place, you're just going to sew around the entire length of the collar. And don't forget to tuck all the raw edges in when you get to the back of the neck collar seam, because since you folded it over, there are going to be some raw edges. So you're just going to double hem those raw edges so nothing's hanging out. Once I was done sewing the lining in the back of the collar, I moved on to the front of the collar. Now this part is really up to you how thick you want your collar to be. I wanted mine to be pretty thick, so I folded it over like 2 inches instead of the recommended 4 inches. So it made my collar a little bit thicker. But if you want a thinner one, you can fold it over 4 inches, no problem. When you fold it over, make sure you fold over your edges twice so there's no raw edges hanging out. And once you're done, sew it down. Once I was done sewing the collar down, I moved on to the bottom hem. And you want to be careful with the bottom hem if you use a lining, because the lining can pull and tug on your fabric while you're wearing it if you don't space it out evenly. So make sure everything is nice and even when you're pinning it together. Make sure it's even, I'm telling you, because I definitely had to seam rip my lower hem because it was like bunchy and puffy. It looked like bubbly. It was ugly. I definitely had to seam rip it out and do it all over. So make sure before you sew it down, everything is nice and even and not tugging. The last thing left to do on this blazer is hem the sleeves. So you're just going to fold it over twice and hem it down. Nothing crazy. And that's basically it. This blazer's done. Bonus time! Bonus time! Let me stop. You know how I love to make an outfit and not just one piece. So I definitely had to make a mask to match my blazer since it's mask season. This pattern was a little more intricate than the last mask pattern I made, but definitely worked out pretty much the same. I just printed this pattern off of Google just for sizing, but you really don't need to print out the pattern. See this shape? Make this shape and make sure it fits your face. And then cut it out on your fabric 4 times. And then you're going to have your mask pattern. It really does not have to be specific at all, I'm telling you. But once you have your pattern, you're just going to take 2 pieces and sew around the circular edge. Then you're going to take the other 2 pieces and do the exact same thing. Once you're done doing that, you're going to take those 2 pieces and put them right sides together. And you're going to sew around the whole perimeter. Make sure you leave the 2 small sides open so you can put the elastic for your ears. Or if you want the one that goes around your head, you still need that piece open. So make sure you leave that open for that. Once you have your tubular shape, just take your elastic and slide it inside of your tube and leave it poking out both openings. Then sew it down because you're going to turn this inside out. And then that's it. Yes, like yes. Do you see this? Like yes, so beautiful, so vibrant, so boss lady-ish. Yes, I really love this. I'm so glad you guys made it to the end of the video. Thank you so much. And if you liked it, make sure you click that like button and drop me a comment so I can hit you back and say what's good. Make sure you guys are subscribed too, because I need my subscribers to climb. So make sure you guys are subscribing and sharing the video so all your friends can see all this good content I got going on. Alright you guys, until next week, love, peace, and cupcakes.